guys, welcome back to Daytoday Chess. This is Sabina. I would like to wish you all a happy new year 2016. I hope you started the year determined to fulfill your New Year's resolutions. I know I did, at least I hope I did. I mentioned in my last video that this year marks the 100th anniversary of Paul Keres. Paul Keres was born on 7th of January 1916, so 916, 2016, right? 100 years. I had to make a joke there. And he was one of the strongest players in the world for about 30 years, from the middle of 1930s till probably middle about 1960s. So definitely a big name out there. Besides being a strong chess player, he has also composed positions, one of which I have showed you in my video from yesterday. As a chess player, he's known for his dynamic style, for I guess we could call him a master of dynamic play. And besides reminding you of the study that I have shown you yesterday, I've decided to choose two games, and we'll just go at certain positions from those games. The first one will be his game against Max Euwe, that was played in a friendly match in 1940, and the other game is from the Olympiad of 1964 against Walther Edgar. So hopefully you will enjoy my selection of today, and hopefully because it is the 100th anniversary, it will be, a cool thing to start the year by remembering one of the greatest chess players in the world. So, and by the way, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, which if you haven't seen yet, be sure to check out. I had two videos where I mentioned about Paul Keres. The first one was against Alexandra Alekhine, a game that they played together, and it was a very nice sacrifice, queen takes d7. And then the other one was a rook endgame that he has composed after a rook endgame composed by Lasker. So definitely two videos that if you haven't seen yet, I'll be sure to post them in the description below so you can go back and remember a little bit of Paul Keres' style after you see this video, of course. Okay, and because he was such a strong chess player, he was given the name of Paul II, or the Eternal Second. So if you guys hear these names, know that people are talking about Paul Keres. Okay, so this was the position that I gave you yesterday. So hopefully I'm going to wake up tomorrow or at some point tomorrow, I'm going to see some solutions for this position. White to move and make a draw. This study was composed by Keres in 1935, so I would love to hear your answers. If you manage to solve it, please don't use any engines. It won't help anybody. Okay, so let's go to the first position from the game played between Max Euwe and Paul Keres in their friendly match in 1940. And I've decided to go to move 22, and this is the position that arised, and in this position it is white to move. So Paul Keres has black. Before we start going through the game, I would like you guys to look at the position and try to evaluate it. Who is better in this position? Why? Okay, so hopefully you have done so. And if you look at this position, you realize that black has a pawn up. Not only does he have a pawn up, he also has the bishop pair. They have this past defended pawn here in d4, a very strong piece. This bishop in e6 is very badly placed, could be a piece that's close to be lost from white because of the pin. But, still, maybe white can save themselves, right? Maybe they can save the bishop and If black doesn't manage to open a little bit the position for their bishops, maybe it won't even seem like the position is stronger, because black has a pawn up, but the pawn is double, so it's almost like it's not visible, technically. Okay, so in this position, Max Euwe played f4, which seems like the natural approach, I would say, because white wants to play f5 and make sure their bishop is going to be well defended and that they are not going to lose it. And not only f5, probably white would like to play f5 and then knight f4 to make sure they're strengthening the bishop in e6. And if you don't find a way to get that bishop out, probably white has no problems. But that move is not that great, and we're going to see in a second why. Instead of that, probably rook e1 was a more natural approach. I mean, the bishop is pinned. We need to bring another defense really fast to try to get our queen out and make sure, you know, we're not going to lose any material. And then, of course, with the same idea, we can have it, but first we make sure that nothing will happen to our bishop. And then knight f4, maybe knight f4 and queen h5 is another opportunity here for white to kind of try to utilize the fact that black's king is kind of alone here, and then the knight could jump to g6 checkmate. That would be a nice idea. But of course, after rook to e1, black here can consider to play bishop c8 and get rid of this bishop quite fast. And after queen g4, only move to try to make sure the bishop stays alive, we can capture, take everything here, and this position is much better for black, but it's going to be a little bit tough for black to actually transform, you know, convert this game into a win. Maybe queen e8 or queen g8 are possible to trade the queens, but still, you know, it seems that white is controlling the light squares with the knight. They will be able to bring their knight to d3, and then, you know, it's really very hard to find a way for black to win this position. But let's see what happened after f4. Can you guys try to pause the video and find the brilliant dynamism that Paul Keres found in this game? Maybe there are more ways for black to try to improve this position and win it. Queen d6 could be one of those moves, and after f5, consider to play queen c6 to make sure this knight is not going to be moved from g2 anytime soon. In this position, I think black is doing quite all right. We can say this rook is gonna come to d8 and think of the pushing. But it seems a little bit slow, you know, and in this position, Paul Keres found a very nice, I would say, brilliant tactical idea. He played d3. And what's so good about this move? Well, what do? I've attacked your queen, I've opened up my bishop. You don't really have good squares for the queen. I mean, you can't play queen e1. You need to stay somewhere to make sure your bishop is protected. If you do that, I guess I could play some bishop here check, and then I can take the pawn in b2 if I want to. But in the same time, I would like to play queen d6 and try to win the bishop, right? But we don't want to allow white to play f5, so maybe we can play first g6, because there's no way for white to protect this bishop in any way. So we can play g6 first just to avoid f5, and then attack the bishop, queen d6 or queen f6, and black should be winning. So queen e1 is not a good possibility for white. So Max Euwe, what to do? He has to take. Seems like a natural approach. Okay, so what was the idea? Why give this pawn for free? Well, it's not for free, obviously. Queen takes d3. This is the brilliant continuation that Paul Keres found. That's why, you know, when I told you earlier that he was a master of dynamic play, here's why. you can see it from this game. Bishop d4 check. So now the bishop from f6, which didn't seem like it's doing anything with the pawn in d4, now gets some play, is closing the file, but in the same time puts this king to h1 possibly. If white had gone king h1, probably bishop takes e6, and then my next moves are going to be rook a to e8, rook e2, and white would be resigning quite fast. So that is the reason why Max Euwe played rook f2 in this position. Of course, Paul Keres continued the rook takes e6, king f1. You know, we are trying not to give away the rook anymore. And don't worry, Paul didn't even capture the rook in f2. Not at all. That seems like the natural approach, you know, just bishop takes f2, and after king takes f2, now rook a to e8, and you know, we have the opportunity of playing rook here and then getting one of the rook's actives. But after knight h4, maybe it's not super clear how black is going to convert this position after queen c3. So that is the reason why Paul Keres didn't even take the rook. He played rook a to e8 immediately. Okay, what to do? f5. Instead of f5, if white had moved the rook somewhere d2 or c2 in this position, let's say d2, bishop e4 would have followed. And you don't really have good squares for the queen. After queen b3, let's say, now the bishop switches diagonals and wants to go to h3 and then threaten rook e1 mate. And it's very, very tough for white to find ways to defend. Let's say queen f3 and now rook d1 to make sure that the knight is protected and that square is being controlled, but it's not enough for white. Rook e3. And after queen f2, white is just paralyzed, cannot move any of the pieces. Basically, I can do anything I want here with black. So it's a really, really tough position for white after rook a to e8. So Max Euwe played f5, hoping that some changes will happen, but what changes? Rook e5. I still have the same threat. f6, trying to create some dynamic play on the king side. Well, Paul Keres took back, g takes f6, rook d2, rook takes f6 of course would not have worked because simply capture, king takes, and now rook e2 check and you're losing your rook. So rook d2 was his only choice, and now bishop c8. Utilizing the same idea that I showed you earlier, to bring the bishop in h3, pin the knight, and then threaten rook to e1 mate. Knight f4, what to do? Now at least I got my knight out, I'm controlling the square h3, maybe I'll manage to survive this. Unfortunately not. Rook e3, let's see where you're moving the queen. There aren't that many spaces available, queen b1 is kind of forced. Check. And here, please pause the video and find another brilliant move. I hope you did pause it and found it. Rook takes f4. Sacrificing another piece. So first he sacrificed the queen, now he's sacrificing the exchange. So what? He has two bishops for the queen. Can you believe it? He actually won this? Well, of course. We are not looking at material in this position. In this position, what's important is king safety. King safety should be the first thing that you're looking at when starting to evaluate a position, not the material. You can have so many pieces up, but your king be in danger and get mated the next move. What's the point to have all that material, right? So be sure to think about how you are evaluating the position, and in case you're not doing the right thing, well, try to do it. Obviously, king h1 would have led to bishop b7 mate, and king f1, right, in this position would have led to rook g1 check, losing the queen. Maybe they're mates as well. I didn't check immediately, but I think there should be bishop g4, bishop f5. Okay, so king f3, and here the last move of the game, bishop g4, after which Paul Keres resigned. Max Euwe. Max Euwe resigned in this position. I mean, why? Because what to do? If you go king g3, there's going to be bishop f5, check queen, and I stay with two bishops up. And if you play king e4, there's going to be this little check. You can go king d3, but then bishop f5 mate. So you have to go king d5, and here bishop f3 check. You have to give away the queen, and I take it mate. So this was the game that I really wanted to show you. I really hope you enjoyed this game and are looking forward to the next one because I'm not done yet. Okay, so the other position that I wanted to show you came from the game that Paul Keres played against Walther Edgar in the Olympiad in 1964, and this was the position that happened at move 20 and, well, 19. And here, if we evaluate the position, you might say that, oh, this knight in h2 is really badly placed. What does white do with this knight? Well, don't worry, it's not that bad as it looks. This knight has two opportunities. One would be after moving the rook to try to bring the knight via f1, e3. And then the other one would be the idea that Paul Keres, I think he introduced the first time this idea in this game. I'm not 100% sure though. If you guys know otherwise, feel free to let me know. But I think the idea was that there will be some sacrifice in g4 at some point. So be ready for that at the right moment. First, we notice that white has more space on the queen side, but black is ready to play some f5, and this is the main idea for black in King Indian. So that's why white has to be ready to meet f5. And how to be ready to meet f5 if not doubling on the f-file? So that's exactly what he did. Rook f2 with the idea to double on the f-file. And Walther, Edgar, played f5 here. Capture. Knight takes f5. You gotta be careful about this check queen. Bishop takes f5, and here rook a to f1. What to do in this position? It's kind of clear that the bishop needs to be moved or protected. In the game, Walther Edgar actually messed up. He played bishop g6, which is a big mistake. And it is from here, actually, that I wanted to show you the position. But I decided to go a little bit further back because I wanted you guys to be sure. I wanted to be sure that you guys are going to learn about this idea and know how to try to avoid it in case you're playing King's Indian with black. Queen d7 is probably the normal response in this position. Defending the bishop and at the same time making sure this spot g4 is going to be well protected and not allow white to make this sacrifice. Now, of course, in this position, white can try knight b5 with the idea capturing in d6 and then taking in f5. So here, of course, the bishop can go back, whether in g6 or h7. Either one is fine. And in this position, it's going to be tougher for white to sacrifice in g4. There are other ideas, though. There's rook f6 idea, utilizing the weakness of the bishops, but in the same time the weakness of d6. So be familiar with these ideas in case you are playing with either one of the colors, the King's Indian. And so here after rook f6, probably black has to play king f7, h7. Then we're taking in d6, probably capturing in f1, and now knight queen f5. And this position seems to be about equal, I would say. White will put the king in h2, and probably black is going to try to trade queens so that the endgame would be better for black because they have the bishop pair. But of course, it's a tough fight. Definitely would have been a much better choice for black than bishop g6. So what happened here after bishop g6? Well, this brilliant sacrifice that I mentioned to you earlier by Paul Keres. Another game where you see his mastery of dynamic chess. Knight takes g4. What to do? You have to take back. You just lost the pawn, right? Pawn takes. Queen takes g4, attacking the bishop. You have to protect it with king h7. And here, Paul Keres is continuing the attack. h5. Bishop d3. There are no other good spots for the bishop to go to. Bishop d3, and now takes. Of course, bishop takes f8, only move, your queen is being attacked. And now you have to find a good spot for the rook. Now don't get too active immediately, rook f7 check, for example, because after king h8, it seems that white doesn't have checks anymore. And black might be able to find some ways of protecting their king by playing queen e8, possibly. So you need to be cautious and not, the position is good for white, but he has to be cautious. He has 3 pawns here. If he manages to push them in a nicely fashion, he's going to win. So there's no need to hurry with checks. Now, of course, he has sacrificed a piece, so he needs to make sure he remembers that. But there's no point to give a check just to give a check. If there's no continuation and it seems like the pieces will not be coordinated anymore, don't do it. Rook f3 simply, attacking the bishop. Bishop c2. Now he played knight e4. It's time to bring another piece in the game. With the rook he wouldn't have done anything because this bishop in f8 was a nice protector. It still is. And so now he's bringing another piece, threatening some knight f6, queen g8 mate. So black played king h8 and now rook f7. Now it is the time to play rook f7. Queen e8. What to do with black? I mean, it's a very tough position. If bishop takes e4, simply queen takes, and then okay, the threat is there. Bishop g7 is the only response. Now queen g6 would be coming, attacking the bishop. Black would go probably queen g8 and here h6, and queen h7 is probably the only response in this position. There's no space for the bishop. If bishop f8, simply queen f6 and mate, and there's no other spot for the bishop, so queen h7 would be the only answer for black. But after queen takes g7, the queens get traded off the board. I have 2 pawns up and I might take some more here, so definitely a winning position for white. So Walther, Edgar decided to go queen e8, and of course we are taking the pawn. Every single pawn is very nicely appreciated. Bishop takes is not possible because of queen g7 mate. So black went queen a4, hoping for the queen trade, but of course white is in attack. Never ever trade pieces unless you're really forced to when you are in an attack. Queen g5. Still keeping the tensions and some little threats here and here for white. Queen a6, queen takes e5 check, and here rook f6. So now threatening some mates. After queen d3, trying to control the diagonal, Paul Keres went king h2 just to make sure there won't be any checks, and after queen h7, simply queen e6 check, and black resigned. I mean, after king h8, knight f7 would have followed, and if king g8, probably knight here check. Let's say you go to g7 because there you would lose the bishop. So let's say you go to g7 and now check and check. Anyways, queen there and mate. Well, not exactly. Queen g8. Let's just do the simplest mate here. Queen h6 or rook h6, whatever you wish. So these were the games that I've decided to start the year with. I really hope you enjoyed my video. I went a little bit longer than usually. I really wanted to emphasize on this wonderful year that marks the 100th anniversary of Paul Keres, one of the strongest chess players of all time, who unfortunately didn't become a world champion. But you know, there aren't that many people who become world champions. So all of us have something to bring to chess. Be sure to stay strong this year and make your New Year resolutions come true. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye.